region. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Players Corner with Karim Grant. I am your host, Karim Grant. Today we have a very special guest in the studio, none other than Richard Karikari, a former Grey Cup champion, a former CFL All-Star, and a current entrepreneur, one of the best in Durham region. Richard, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
Thanks for coming through, man. I appreciate you coming through, man. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. It's a long time I haven't sit down and have a chat with you. We were once enemies, became friends, and now we're on we're coaching on the same coaching staff, which is great. So it's a great kind of 360 moment for us.
For sure.
I wanted to get you in today just to talk to you about your journey because we've had similar paths. Yeah. Both GTA kind of all-stars coming up in high school in the Toronto and Pickering region, and ended up going out east to play football. Yeah. You went to St. FX. I ended up going to Acadia. Yep. Right, we had some great battles out there, man. How was that? Where did you learn to play football? Where did you start?
There's a lot of things that happen. People don't know one of my first sports is baseball. So baseball by far is the sport I played the most. Played that to about 18. Mm-hmm. I also played tennis, which I hid from people. Wow. I was part of a tennis academy at age 14 and 15. Very good tennis player, I thought I was at least. So I think my agility came from that. Mm-hmm. I remember winning in high school, LASA, and telling the principal, please don't announce it to the school.
Are you serious?
At that time, it was a little bit different. Wow. St. Mary's wasn't as diverse as it probably is now, and I think for me, I wasn't really confident at that point to have everybody know that I played tennis.
Do you feel like you'd have been ostracized if you told people?
There was no Venus Williams at that time, so I think I would have been one of the only minorities, that maybe this area would have seen playing tennis. So I think it was a big thing for me to kind of keep it hidden. Yeah. The principal at the time did respect my wishes and just said we had a member of our school win a tennis tournament and we should congratulate them. So, but looking back, this is something I would probably tell my kids never do. Be proud of what you've accomplished.
Absolutely.
But I did leave tennis after age 16 because I had to focus on baseball. And then from baseball, I met a guy who said, look, we need a football player at our high school in OAC. That's grade 13 back in those days. And
hold on. Let me get this straight. You started playing football in grade 13, which is pretty much some people's first year at university. Yeah.
I transferred high schools, graduated St. Mary's. I transferred high schools to Pickering High, which is known as a good football school. Right. And the coach just put me at quarterback. He said, "Look, you're playing quarterback because I could throw already." Yeah. And there's a lot of different factors. We had some scouts back then. The guy I think got Ron Diaz. There was all these football scouts, and we just happened to play a school, Henry Carr, in our first year. Mm-hmm. And there was a lineman there, Hazul, I think his name was. He ended up going to the University of Miami. Okay. He was already scouted to go down there, so a lot of scouts were there for him. Right. I had a good game. Long story short, my film kind of got put to somebody else. We had a teacher strike, so everybody's film got kind of ruined. And then, just got lucky. And then I got, a couple of MAC schools offered me in the Northeast, and, just the journey started. And then I played junior ball because they needed more film, junior ball for the Burlington Braves. My parents thought I was crazy. I drove from Ajax to Burlington 4 times a week to practice and play. Right. And these are stories I don't tell kids. And, I work with kids now because I took the long road. It wasn't the conventional, leave high school, go to university. And I went to junior ball out there, and I kind of figured at that point I wanted to play football. That's when I really knew I wanted to play football. Yeah. Falling asleep on the DVP and then taking it to the QEW, you realize really quickly how much you love the game. Right. So I loved it.
Do you wish that potentially you could have started earlier?
100%. Right. 100%. But it's a blessing on the other side because parents call me now since I run a minor football pro club, and they ask me, is my kid good enough to play or is he too small? And my answer to them is I started at 18. So I can give them a different perspective of just let them come to me and I'll be the best judgment of it. Yeah. If they love the game, they'll be fine. If they don't love the game, they're not going to last. Right?
And that speaks to this whole concept of being a multi-sport athlete.
100%.
Right? Can you speak to that?
100%. I tell people tennis is by far the only reason why I think I made the CFL. Right. Tennis is the agility to be able to move in the first 3 steps in tennis has to be explosive.
Right.
And my position ended up being quarterback in high school, but I finished off as a defensive back in the CFL.
Yeah.
Again, the first 3 steps. So, I have a lot of arguments with parents about, specialization. I tell them, don't do it.
Right.
I'm a true believer you should play as many sports as you can. Obviously, the dynamic now is different. Because high school, a lot of kids don't participate in high school sports like how we did.
Yeah.
I remember walking down the hall.
Is there even high school sports anymore?
I don't even know. I just know I played volleyball and I was 4'11".
Yeah, I hope by the time this show airs, there is some high school sports that we can speak of.
Yeah, hopefully.
So you played. Let's say you started with tennis.
Yep.
Went to baseball, then you transitioned into football.
Yep.
You kind of fell into football. Literally. Right? And so you traveled to Burlington, you got some film, got some notoriety, had a few offers, and you ended up at St. FX.
Just before that, people don't know, I ended up at University of Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I received an offer and I went to University of Buffalo for a semester.
And how'd that go?
And it was the worst experience of my life.
Talk about it.
I learned really quick that I love football, but I didn't love to be controlled by football. And people have to understand when you go to the U.S., you are property of the university.
Right.
And their agenda for you could be 50-50 academics, athletics, but you are on a schedule athletically. And I didn't know if I loved it that much.
Yeah.
So after the semester is done, I talked to the coach. I went down there as a receiver. Obviously, being a short quarterback, they weren't going to use me.
Right.
But I went down there as a receiver, and they told me to move to DB.
Right.
And after talking to some teammates, they said, once they move you, you're not playing the next year. It's another couple of years of development. So I just said, something, I love the sport. I just want to play.
Right.
I just want to play. So I transferred out. I came back, and obviously schools knew I was available. I went to U of T, York, Mac. I went to all the visits. And then, I don't know what it was. Somebody called me from St. FX in Acadia, and I went out there for a visit.
Why didn't you chose St. FX over Acadia? Let's talk about that.
There's actually one individual that got me to go there. It wasn't the head coach. It was actually the offensive coordinator there. Okay. Steve Hallett, Coach Hallett, I call him.
Right.
He's now a teacher here in Durham. His wife was he was a white coach. Yeah. His wife was black.
Wow.
And the university wasn't as diverse as I felt coming from Toronto. And I remember he drove me from the airport, took me to his house, and I won't lie, I expected to see, 2 white kids, a white wife, and just what I saw when I was driving through the airport. And when I walked in the house, I was like, oh, I didn't know. He's like, this is my wife. And I said, I wasn't expecting. And he's like, don't worry. He's like, I'm here. This was his first year at the university. Yeah. So he's like, I'm here, and I brought my biracial family here. Wow. You can trust that you're going to be welcome if I'm here. Wow. And it was in the summer when I visited, so I actually never saw any students. Yeah. So I picked the university based on what I saw the facilities look like and what I saw.
Beautiful campus.
It is a beautiful campus. They've done a lot even up to today with the campus. But that's how I actually determined. I'm like, this coach is here, taking a risk for his family. I'm going to take a risk, and then that's how I chose X.
Absolutely. I mean, shout out to St. FX because if it wasn't for them, I don't know where my son would be right now because he had a tremendous career there, and he's one of. But you were one of the reasons why I was okay with him going there because I'm like, you know what? They took care of KK. They're going to take care of my son. I had another coach that was there, Gord Gallimore,
great
who actually
guy.
really recruited him and really made that that transition that much more seamless. So from there, you had a stellar career there. You had some great accolades. You're all Canadian. I don't think you've ever beat us, but we'll not talk about it. It's all good. You end up getting drafted into the CFL. Yeah.
Well, let's stop. So, you're not giving yourself credit. I remember very vividly going into my first year and having a good year. Obviously, Acadia and St. FX were a much better team at that time. And yourself was signed with the Falcons.
Yes.
That was, I think, a turning point for me just looking at the conference. St. Mary's was a national championship winner, so they were already a stellar football program. Right. But individually, I wasn't sure what I could do for myself. There was no thinking of CFL at that time. And I think a lot of guys go into now thinking CFL before they even played their first university game. But I remember you signing with the Falcons, and that hit our campus, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, we can get to the NFL.
Yeah.
from this little small town of 5,000 people. So I kudos to you on that, because, you know, I mean, to me, that's what put my brain to start thinking, okay, there is some goals after St. FX. It might not just be in working in computers like my degree was, right? I just want to give you that, man.
No, I appreciate that, man. I always said to myself, it's not where I am, but it's what I do with where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? I said, as long as there's video cameras out there, it's going to get out there. They'll find me. And so, and before you know it, my third year, I had, you know, at the time, the St. Louis Rams were coming down to see me, and they were, and then Green Bay, and then every single school was coming, not school, team was coming to Wolfville, Nova Scotia.
Small town, guys. Small town.
Right?
I'm telling you, small town.
So, I mean, it was really incredible. You know, I had a great time there. I did not think it would be that much fun. The only thing that I realized once I got to the CFL is that they didn't respect the AUS, which was what it was called back then.
AUS.
When we got to the league. So let's talk about your transition into the CFL.
I got saved. I got saved by Coach McPhee. You know, he was the head coach of the team in the last year. I was in the mindset. I trained my butt off that summer. I was in the mindset that a CFL was an option. He came in there as a new coach, didn't know any players, and I remember walking in his office, and I use this till today. I literally just walked in his office. I didn't even think I knocked. He said, "Son, please step outside," and I said, "What? Do you know who I am?" Long story short, he said, "I know everything about you, and you've been given too much up to this point. I'm going to make you work for what your real goal is." And I've carried that. And I just threw a joke. So you want me to be a team captain? He's like, no. People learn through what you do. So they're gonna follow you. You don't need to be a team captain. And I actually use that till today, because there's things that I do purposely that I don't like to be in front, but I work from behind, and I still give that same impact. So he helped me, got me to the point of All-Canadian status, got me into a position where I was nominated for national awards, and I got drafted to Montreal, and I thought, here we go. I made it, Mom. We're going to Montreal and on a rookie contract with not a lot of money, but I made the team, and I think that was the most important thing. And
so big shout out to Coach Dennis McPhee. We called him Deke.
Coach
Deeker. He was one of my first coaches in Hamilton when I was there. And we're going to talk a little bit about your experience in the CFL, because you know, for some it was great, for some it was okay, and for some it was just terrible. And I think you're somewhere in between.
I'm in between.
That whole gamut right there. For myself, it was a very short career, but both of us, you know, thankfully were able to leave on our own accords. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But what was and you got about a minute before we run to break. What was the first moment you realized, yo, I made it?
When they paid for my flight. No, I knew I felt I made it when in our exhibition game we played against Ottawa. And now learning 6 years after, when they throw rookies in the game, it's not always for you to make the team. It's sometimes for you to fail so they can cut you. And I think I was put in a position where they put me at what they call predominantly American position, which was a halfback position. It's a tough position for Canadians to transition to. And I was covering the best receiver for Ottawa at the time. And I'm thinking, why are they having a Canadian boy cover the best receiver?
So I'm going to stop you right there, because I want to hear this story. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back in 2 minutes with the Players Corner with Karim Grant and Richard Karikari.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities. Your mission is to destroy every trace of something known only as Project Starfish.
This is suicide.
Well, that's kind of our thing.
That's my dad.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Players Corner with Karim Grant. I'm your host, Karim Grant. We are here in studio with Richard Karikari, a Grey Cup champion and former CFL All-Star. We were just talking to him a little bit about one of his come-to-Jesus moments in the CFL and what made him realize that he had arrived. Let's talk a bit about it.
Yeah, like I say, it's again, I was set up for failure, I felt, by the coach, the late Don Matthews, one of the greatest coaches in the CFL. He put me at an American spot, which is the strong halfback, covering the best receiver for Ottawa, and I was really nervous. I don't know what word I'm allowed to use on TV, but I was really, really nervous, and I made 2 plays.
Wow.
I made 2 plays, and I think I over-celebrated like it was Carabana, but I made 2 plays. And at that point, when I came off the field, he said to me, I didn't expect it, son, but great job.
Right.
He actually said, I didn't expect it. So when you hear a coach say you didn't expect it, you were set up, but the great job, I knew I made the team at that point.
That's incredible, because especially coming from Don Matthews, such a great coach, and with his resume, that kind of stuff, it means a lot.
Yeah, it did.
You know what I mean? So you're in the CFL now. You're a solid. You're a starter. You're doing everything that needs to be done to continue playing. You become a Grey Cup champion. How was that experience?
It was good. Montreal was actually a very good team through my years. We went to the Grey Cup 3 times in 4 years.
Wow.
So, for me, I got lucky. There's no point in me. I got really lucky going through that transition with them. I had the ups and downs in my first 2 years. I always have to be behind an American. People don't realize in the CFL there's a dress quota of how many Canadians to Americans can start. So you could be the best guy up as a Canadian, but you got to make sure you have an adequate Canadian behind you just so you can keep that starting job. If not, you're usually back up an American.
Right.
So we got through that, and the Don helped me through that. It took 3 years to get to that point. But at the end of it, we went to the Grey Cup. I got one of the biggest contracts, which I was happy learning now.
Well, they broke you off. I remember.
Yeah.
They broke you off a little change. I remember that.
Yeah, but it also comes with the other side, in which that contract lasted for a year, and then they released me, which is probably the first time I had to go through a moment of being told you're not good enough.
Right. How did that feel?
They called me and just told me they're going to be trading me, and then a day later they told me that they're releasing me.
Wow.
So the contract was stipulated with some bonuses, and that date was coming up, close to those bonuses. So it is what it is. It's business. Looking now as an entrepreneur, I would have done the same thing. Right? It's all about a budget. The salary cap came in the CFL for the first time that year, and if I take them over the cap, I wasn't meant to be.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you're at the height of your career. When you think you're doing great work, you're out there making plays, becoming a CFL All-Star, going to Grey Cups 3 years straight, and then all of a sudden they drop the axe. Right? So it's tough, man. So what are some of the other obstacles you might have dealt with playing in the CFL?
It's just the every year coming in, training camp, new faces, being whispers of we gotta get rid of this guy, hearing your name part of that conversation. Those are things that people don't understand. CFL is not about, if you're talking about just about the salary you make, that's one component, but the stress that you actually hold, because you're actually leaving an employment potentially if you work in the off season for this opportunity to play football for 5-6 months. So. For a lot of us, that's a risk, right? And for me, I was very business-oriented in the off-season. So when I was leaving the off-season, I'm coming into CFL to actually gain more for the business that I'm leaving and use that as an opportunity to grow my brand back home. So,
were you making more in the off-season than you were in the actual CFL?
I think I was better off in certain years in the off-season than I was making in the CFL, for sure, until I became an all-star, and I think I recognized at that point that I needed to make football more of a priority and use the off-season to more develop myself.
How did you know it was over for you in your career, your football career?
Oh, something? I probably say every year I've felt like that, but the reality is I got traded to Calgary, or signed with Calgary, I apologize, and you just feel that why am I here moment. You're kind of going through the motions. Calgary started off 0-2, and at this point I'm like, something, I don't know if I really care about the game as much, but I love the locker room, and that's what kept me in any sporting environment, was the locker room. And then we just won a bunch of games. Then all of a sudden we're the #1 in the CFL, most wins, and then all of a sudden I had to make a moral decision, because I had a little hamstring injury in week 8, and in the CFL, what ends up happening is after 9 games, for a veteran like myself, your contract is guaranteed.
Right.
So the coach came up to me and said, look, if you're not able to go the rest of this 9, you got to let us know because you're going to cost us some money.
Right.
You're going to hurt our salary cap,
Yeah,
he basically told
absolutely.
me. And so I said to the coach, look, I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And he gave me that look like, kind of like, if you really can't go, shut her down.
Let us know.
So, you know, for me, I really couldn't go. And I ended up getting an MRI for my hamstring, and I rehabbed. It took 4 or 5 weeks, and then the team kept winning without me in the roster. I was able to come back near the end of the year. They got to the Grey Cup. Happened to be against my old team, Montreal Alouettes, in Montreal. So, you know, I look at that as all of I'm into that type of mode of it was meant to be.
Yeah, that's great.
You know?
Yeah.
So we won the Grey Cup in Montreal, against Montreal.
Yeah.
I had my family,
Bittersweet.
my friends there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just the right time.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I mean, and so you made that easy transition now into the entrepreneurial life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. You know, I remember you were doing a lot of coaching and training while you were playing.
Yeah.
And then now you made this foray into a more business-centered kind of environment. Like, let's talk about how that happened.
It starts right off the bat with my dad. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He was well known in the East Scarborough area. You know, I worked at a store. So for me, I've always been business orientated.
Right.
My degree is computer science, which I actually ended up not using into my field, but I still do things that help me, like websites and stuff like that. And I just felt that for me, the field that I went into, which was more the fitness and the rehab, was what I really wanted to do. I trained at a facility, and I think what stimulated, I went to a facility back then used to be called Athletes Performance.
Right.
A lot of the big dogs would go there, and their whole motto was bring in athletes, train them, get them right, but they incorporated a lot of the rehab in there as they're getting their strengthening and speed. And Canada at that time never had anything. So I took a risk. You know what I mean? I took a massive risk, got a 7,000 square feet building in Ajax.
Right.
And I opened it up with the physiotherapist, and we grew the brand. We just grew it.
Wow.
And I worked my butt off 7 days a week. I felt like that was like my what's the word? In the CFL, we didn't really work too much during the day. It was 4 hours they had us, and we got to rest.
You're right.
I felt like that was coming back to haunt me, the amount of hours I put into this. But the business turned out well, and you know,
It's thriving.
it went well.
So you're able to, I think in 2000, you were the Durham region Entrepreneur of the Year. What year was that?
I think it was Ajax Pickering.
Ajax Pickering.
I think so. I have to look, but they gave me an Entrepreneur of the Year award.
Yeah.
I think they might have made a mistake, but I'm just like, no.
No, man. I think they made a great choice.
Yeah, they gave me an award there, and honestly, that allowed me to understand that I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
You talked about moments of when you felt you felt belonged. To sit in a room with a bunch of other entrepreneurs who are their companies are making 10, 15, 20 million dollars in the Durham region.
Right.
And then for me at that point, I'm not making that money, but I work my butt off to get us into a brand, you know, that people can recognize.
Right.
1,000% to be recognized was amazing.
Absolutely. And you just started playing Monopoly. You bought the Ajax Soccer Club. Man.
I'm an employee of Ajax Soccer.
So talk about that. How did that happen?
So for me, it all ties together to what I do. So I love working with athletes. I love working in sports. And I felt there was a need to be finally what I call sports management service. So I started with the Dolphins. It's a club that I played football for one summer. The Ajax Pickering Dolphins at that time, they were struggling. They were $57,000 in the hole, and they needed help.
Right.
I was able to take on some of that debt. I restructured the club, and I made myself the president, and I rebranded it, called it the Durham Dolphins. And to be honest, it was probably one of the best things I did. I changed the landscape of football, I feel, in Ontario.
You changed the culture for sure. And it was really, you know, we can really attribute a lot of that change in culture to what you did with that team and what you're doing moving forward.
Yeah.
So right now, I mean, you've got all this stuff going for you.
Yeah.
What continues to drive you?
It's kind of weird. I have 3 boys right now, and I look at my dad. And I look and see what he did. He worked at his craft. He had one business, and that was his craft. He did some real estate stuff on the side, and I look and figure out what do I want to do. I dabbled a couple of years ago. I tried to coach at University of Guelph, and I did that for a season to see if I had the taste for coaching. I don't have that same taste. I have the taste to continue to do what I'm doing right now. I love coaching little kids. I coach Adam and Pee-wees right now. Thankfully, you're coming to help out with the older guys. But the thing for me is Ajax and Pickering is probably one of the most diverse cities all in Canada.
Wow.
Ajax, I think, is one of the most diverse in all of Canada, if you have over 100,000 people. So for me, it's very passionate for me to work with all those different groups that we have in our area. Because when they get their scholarships and when they go to university, they make sure they tell you.
Right.
And that means more to me. You know, just on the weekend, seeing a kid cry and telling me that I've been working with him, to one of the kids defensive end like you, he wants to be exactly like you.
Right.
And to have him have tears in his eyes telling me, like, Coach, I don't have the love the same way, you know, and I don't know what to do. Can you guide me? I'm like, wow, you're an 18-year-old kid telling me to guide you? That means there's something that he's learned from me that he needs from me. So I want to stay there. That's what I want to do. In terms of business, I just want to continue to be around sports.
Right.
You know, I'm the GM of Ajax Soccer. I love it. I've taken over another soccer club called FC Seton. I love it. It's a new thing that starts in September.
You literally are just playing Monopoly out here. I love it. I love it, though.
Yes. No, it's providing opportunities in different areas to kids that cannot afford. Because with the Dolphins, we try to be affordable. I work with every parent in any way to make sure we can get the kids on the field. In soccer, I'm trying to do the same thing. You know, so it's just branching out and trying to get sports to a situation where parents don't use money as an obstacle of why the kids are playing or not playing.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's my mission there.
So I'm sure there's a lot of people that you have to oversee and a lot of kids that you have to kind of help and foster relationships with. What are some things that you would kind of tell some young athletes coming up today to help them to nurture their craft?
Do your schoolwork.
Right.
Sorry, I always say that because that tells me a lot. If you have parents on you telling you to get your studies done and you can't even respect that aspect, it's hard for me to give you advice on other things unless you're really challenged in that area. But I would say right now for me, kids just have to learn to respect. You know, respect starts with listening. That's it.
That's it.
If you listen, you don't do, I'm okay with it. But if you listen and you really, really listen, you will probably try to apply it into life.
Real quick, NFL season's coming up. Who's your team?
Oh, Eagles. I've always been an Eagle fan. Randall Cunningham. That's the man right there. But no, Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts all day. Best decision they made by keeping him.
Nice.
I'm so happy he's there.
Nice. I used to be an Eagles fan too, but I'm a bit partial to the Buffalo Bills. So go Bills. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an incredible conversation with Richard Karikari. I call him KK. Not too many other people can call him that. I also call my son KK. But I appreciate you coming in. It's been a great talk. I see you doing great work in the community, and I hope that you continue, expanding and growing and playing that Monopoly. As a young black man, I'm really impressed with what you're doing, man. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man. This
has been the Players Corner with Karim Grant. I'm your host, Karim Grant. We will see you soon at some point in time, and take care.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Hey, did you know?
More than 4,500 Canadians are waiting for an organ transplant right now.
Right now. 45